to drive a motorcycle. Wow. Why? It is so much fun. The freedom you feel on the road. Now, who would be afraid to fire a gun? Much less hands, many less hands. How funny is that? For something that I grew up with on bikes, to me, it's just second nature. I have experience with it. Now take weapons, really any weapons, but especially guns. No experience whatsoever. My parents weren't hunters. We lived on the beach. What are we going to hunt? Therefore, no experience, in my opinion, equals a higher level of fear. I had to overcome this fear somehow because my husband, as much as I love him, got a job with a weapons manufacturer. We went from a house of no guns, which I was very proud about that. I now have 10 AR-15s and 2 pistols. What? How did that happen? He just sort of snuck in the back door. Bad call. I decided to overcome my fear of guns. When Cody, my stepson, graduated from boot camp, he came and visited with us for a week. And they wanted to go out shooting at the range. And I was like, oh, that'd be so cool if I could go too. Apparently, I have my own AR-15. It's cute. Paul customized it for me. Cody, bad Cody, calls it the little pea shooter. It's a 22. I'm like, but it's my pea shooter. I decided to go with them, put my big girl panties on, and go to the range. Slow night, thankfully. We're walking in. I've got my earmuffs on to try to muffle the noise. We walk in. You've got the pistol range first, and you've got the rifle range separate. I didn't see anybody in the pistol range, and all of a sudden we're halfway walking through, and I hear pow! Scared the you-know-what out of me. Didn't think anybody was in the range. So I was like, okay, heart just stopped. I'll be okay. We quickly go to the rifle range, which thankfully there's nobody there. Paul asked me, do you want to shoot yours first, since it's smaller? No, that's okay. I will watch you guys. Well, Paul fires his 300 blackout. First few shots that go off, the noise and the fire coming out of that is intense. And I sat down, and I'm screaming his name. Hopefully he can hear me. While big tears are just coming down my face. It's like, you gotta get me out of here. I can't do this. And that, my friends, was my first experience at the range. Nada. Nothing. Zilch. I was still. I'm not a quitter, and I can't be defeated. Those of you who know me know I'm a bit competitive. Therefore, I had to do something to overcome this. How on earth could I let this be my first experience? I let them have their fun, because to boys it's fun. And I decided to go talk to the person at the desk and say, what do I do? Now what? He informed me that they have classes. I was like, cool. They're going to teach me something. And he's like, yeah, it's taught by a sergeant at the police department, and they go over the mechanics and gun safety. I thought that might be a good idea, gun safety, right? Isn't that what we're taught? Learn gun safety.
Yes.
Great. Sign up for the class. It's a 2-hour class. The first hour is in a classroom setting. And that's exactly what he did. Actually, he taught the mechanics of a weapon. And the mechanics of stance, grip. And I'm like, great, this is good. And it reminded me of the first time that Paul and I took dance lessons. I thought, all I need is music, and I am just all over the place. It just goes right through me. Love music, love dancing. Paul, on the other hand, I love, I love my man. How on earth did I marry a guy with no rhythm? That's what I want to know. My baby's got no rhythm. He's an awesome guy, but he's got no rhythm. But Paul really got into the mechanics of ballroom dancing. And after he got that down, then he allowed himself to hear the music and feel the music, and it got much better. Much better. I thought I would tune into the mechanics of what my instructor was teaching me. And it all made so much sense. The first thing you wanted to talk about was grip. And for those of us who have no experience with guns, we can see what we see on TV, right? Maybe pointing over there, going like this, something like that. He's like, these are all the wrong moves that you could possibly make. What you're trying to do is shoot your target. Therefore, the grip, the butt of the gun should come right here, the thickest part of your hand. Therefore, you have the most amount of power to handle the recoil. I'm like, well, that's kind of cool. That makes sense. Next thing was your stance. Of course, gripping, oops, it's hard, I don't have a, gripping your gun, making sure. But also your index finger should never be on the trigger until you need it to be on the trigger. Think about it, we have an instinct to point to somebody. Elena, you're my favorite. But we have an instinct just to point to be able to somebody, and it's usually pretty accurate. And the third thing he talked about was the unthinkable. What happens when you have to point that weapon at somebody? You're never prepared. And at that point, in a classroom with a blue molded plastic piece in my hand, big tears are just coming down my face. I am not prepared for this. But wait, it gets worse. The next part is going to the range. I ought to go last so that I could try to get used to at least the sound. It's not helping. I'm freaked out at this point, but I won't quit. He finally calls me up and he realizes I'm crying. And he's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I can do this, I can do this. And I'm in my mind, I'm just thinking about mechanics. And I'm looking at the target, which really isn't that far, it's maybe to the door. And I fire off my first shot. And at that point, the instructor's like, puts the gun down. He's not sure how I'm handling this. I'm visibly shaking. But you know what? I got a 9. I'm almost inside the bullseye. It's very, very cool. I don't know how I did it with all the shaking, but I must have found that perfect spot. I want to leave you with fear can be so debilitating, but if you work through it and find a way, maybe to tap into the mechanics and to understand why you want to do something, or even really if you really want to do that thing, I encourage you to move forward. Because for me, it was definitely the worst experience of my life, but at the same time, the best. Yep, I was scared.